To start off with my name is Gerben van Eck, and I'm the project manager for the Lowland Soil Rehabilitation Project in Ethiopia, which covers the lowlands as far as the regions Afar, Somali, and a little bit of Oromia. I'm here together with my colleague, Miriam Kalkum, and we are here because we think we have developed something special, and I think this is really important. I will take you through the presentation until I'm tired, and Miriam will take over, and we'll show you how this could change livelihoods in Ethiopia, especially in regards to the current climate change issues. I would like to start, of course, with saying that we all know reality, and reality is something that always changes, and it changes without us knowing it. It's like the Greek philosopher who said you can never swim in the same river twice. Every time it changes, and this is a constant process. And sometimes in life, it's not only the reality that's changing. You have a concept. And that makes a big change. And concepts, you notice the change. It's like a light going from red to green, or it's like a blink of the eye. It has to be understood. It was there, but suddenly all bits and pieces fall together. And I think we have that with the dry valley rehabilitation and productive use. Let me see. We can talk about opportunities since we also have a lot of people online. The approach that I'm going to present to you is practically proven, but not scientifically. And one of the reasons why we are here is also to see if we can get students interested in doing further research to create the fundament under the dry valley rehabilitation and productive use. And for the project period, and our project still runs upon the 30th of June 2025, we have set money aside for students and research that can back up what we have proven in the field and what we think is partly theoretically possible. Yeah, let me see. So, lowlands of Ethiopia, but basically it also accounts for the lowlands in the Horn of Africa. Now, what do we have? We have a number of issues working together why we need this. We have population pressures where population increases, and we have issues with climate change. And the climate change, especially the climate changes, we are talking about Ethiopia, and Ethiopia goes from real highlands to real lowlands. The highest point is over 4,000 meters, and the lowest point is minus 125. So there's a lot of difference. And a lot of water for the lowlands comes actually in form of floods to the lowlands. And it has always done this. But nowadays, floods are getting increasingly heavy. And with increasingly heavy floods, you get gully formation. And this is something new, especially for people in Afar who have lived in Afar for 4,000 years. They didn't have a word for gully because until 50 years ago, there wasn't any. Yeah, it's a new thing that has happened slowly by combining population pressure and climate change. If you have gullies, you also have less water infiltration because the water just passes you by faster. So nowadays, if you think about the lowlands, it's about floods and it's about droughts. And this is actually not the correct picture. It can be different. Yeah. If you look nowadays, you have the gully formations and you get a lot of soil loss because of it. Because of the soil loss, also the vegetation is being reduced. If you don't no longer have water, even if your soil is very fertile, yeah, because Afar actually means soil, so that's sort of nice. then what happens is you become dependent. You become dependent on food aid. And these communities are now depending on food. Yeah, they are completely food insecure. And this is not needed. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at a small introduction in how it affects, because we have the floods, and the floods are now going down through the gullies, and they're leaving basically drought behind. And the floods in Afar, they come in walls. They come as a wall down. It's 4 or 5 meters high with rocks and trees in it. But if you come back the next day, it's dry. Now, let's see if this works. On the left-hand side, you see a vegetated area, and on the right-hand side, there's no vegetation. Now, if you look at the infiltration of water, you can see where the problem starts. So not only have you got less water because it flows through, even the water that is there no longer infiltrates. So the first thing to do basically is to keep the water so that it can infiltrate and to grow biomass. Same thing if you look in the losses. If you have a vegetated area, you can see the water that flows out of it is relatively clear. No vegetation means also loss of leaching of nutrients. Now, this has resulted in some major changes in the lowlands, and I've been trying to find pictures of the lowlands from before, and I only found one currently, and that is this one. And this is the Afar region. It's the Teru Plains, and its picture was taken in 1972. When I talk to Afar people, and they say, you know, the grass was so high that we couldn't see our camels. And although it's not completely true, you can see that the vegetation is very lush and very high. I've taken a picture at the same place 50 years later, so in 2022. And that looks now like this. And the only thing that has changed is, of course, population pressure, but what also has changed is the gully formation. And I think for a number of the people of my age anyway, you'll remember the big droughts in Ethiopia in the 1980s. And this is where everything was destroyed. The cattle ate everything that was there in vegetation in the highlands. Everybody was plowing and waiting and praying for rains. Once the rain started, they came in heavy. And once the floods started forming in the highlands, and you can see how that happens in bare land, and then it rushes down, it started to create these gullies. And these gullies took away the water. Because if you look in the lowlands of Ethiopia, you will see plains. And if you're in Afar or you're in Somali, it's plains. And the water used to be distributed and getting you lush vegetation. Yeah? That now is all gone, plus the effect that if the water comes, the infiltration rates are really low. Gully formation. Here I'll show you how a gully can start. And here you see it already. And this is in 10 years, you see from almost nothing over there to a very large gullies. And gullies grow. And this one actually grows to Jijiga town and will be a very big problem very soon. Once it started, this gully formation, you can't stop. This is 3 years after that. And we were there, I think we were there 3 months ago, and it is basically into town now. And these gullies, they look nice from above, but if you go in there, they are more than 15 meters deep. Yeah, and you can hide a stack of trucks in there. Here it is now, and it has increased since then. And also the town has grown, so there you go with the population pressure again. Huh? So we have a solution. That is the thing we call dry valley rehabilitation and productive use. And that is how we can make use of these floods, because the amount of water has not reduced, but the way it comes down and the way it functions has. So we have one major technology, and that is water spreading weirs, which basically, and as there's no engineers here present, I can say is like a wall across the gully. And now what the wall does, it stops the water. And the water, it takes the speed out of the water. And once you take the speed out of water, it starts infiltrating. Plus, the added benefit that all the sediments that are coming from the highlands also are settling in front of these water spreading weirs. The surplus, as you can see on the picture, is still running out of it, and it comes into the next water spreading weir, and so on and so on. So what you have before, where you have these big gullies or dry rivers, starts filling up and it can be used. Here's another picture, and here once again you can see also the water standing, and you can see the area greening, and we can actually see the area greening through satellite pictures. This is one of the clips we took of a water spreading weir that is active, and you have to imagine that this water that is running here was actually just running through the dry river being lost. And here you can see that the whole surface is now underwater. Water is infiltrating, and with water infiltrating, there are more sediments, very fertile soil, and you start getting biomass. This water, once it collects into the riverbed and comes into the next weir, and the process repeats itself. On the whole, the process of greening has 7 major steps. And I'm really not that good in explaining 7 steps, because it's 7 steps to heaven, except for Muslims, where it's only 5. They do things faster. Miriam, can you take over from here?
Now take the chance of having a pointer. So we have this a nice illustration where you can see that we are in a situation here of scarcity, where you have little vegetation, and the process that we intend that we developed with the DVRPU approach is that you end up here where you have vegetation again, and that you actually make use of the water that flows down. And we have narrowed this down or broken down into 7 major steps that I'm going to present to you briefly. So first we have the satellite identification and delineation. This is where before you go to an area, you can check beforehand, because you need for this approach, and Gerben introduced you already to the water spreading weirs, where you need a slope, yeah, otherwise it doesn't work, because you need water running down, you need erosion, because if you don't have a gully, then of course there's no need for DVRPU. So this is what we do as a first step. And then we go on the ground and have the ground truthing in the form of a suitability assessment. And this is a format where we have several aspects that are checked for, social aspects, physical aspects, various aspects, and talking to the people. And then if we say, okay, this place is suitable, then we start talking to the community. And this is for us actually the most important step, to have the community on board, because you can rehabilitate an area, you can go there with a construction company, build a wall, and then leave, yeah. But then we run into problems like, okay, who's taking care of the site, who's doing the maintenance work? And so this is not our approach. So this is why step 3, after the identification and the suitability assessment, the community is included. And this is where we have meetings with the community, which is on the ground, and explain them the approach. This includes presentations as well as exchanges to sites that have been rehabilitated already, so that they have an example, they can talk to other people that have knowledge already. And this is a long process before the community actually commits, that they say, okay, yes, we want that. And if they say no, then full stop. Yeah, then we don't do that. Yeah, we don't force anyone. If they commit, then it comes into the organization of the community. And because the ownership should be with the community. And we are doing that in the form of cooperatives, which are based on guidelines that lead us, yeah, in Ethiopia, and policies. For us, it's the community-based participatory watershed and rangeland development guideline. And yeah, so and there we follow as well the Watershed Cooperative Society proclamation. So it's all legally based. We first started working with CBOs, with community-based organizations, and but the cooperatives have a lot of advantages because they are audited, they are legal, they have much more rights, and they are, as a institution, much more sustainable and functional for us. All right, so if we have the buy-in of the community and the organization of the community, we go into the technical and budgetary planning. And then all these plans of the detailed infrastructure that is going to take place there is developed. And this is not only dry water spreading weirs, but we have also other measures. So we look holistically at the landscape that we find. So it also includes loose check dams, and we have gabions are also an option. I think some of you may know it. I think you worked in the highlands, so from the rangeland management, you know that. But we also have dry stone measures where you without any concrete, you put loose stones together to block that. So it depends on the slope, on the area, so that you see the whole dry valley holistically. And then it comes into construction. So here you find an illustration of a dry stone measure that I just mentioned, and the water spreading weir. And we also have biological measures, because it makes a lot of sense to slow down the velocity of the water that runs down, yeah, in flash floods. Gerben explained it before, from the highlands, to take the speed out of the water, the force of the water, to give time for the water to infiltrate, and also to protect the measures, because in the first 2 years, of course, the walls, yeah, the water spreading weirs are really vulnerable, because if the water comes with full force, of course, they can be damaged quite easily. Here are some insights into the construction work, how it looks on the ground. There, the community is, if possible, included and participates. We have actually the opportunity to give mason trainings, where people get a basic literacy training, and the A level, which is the lowest level of a mason training, which is acknowledged by the government, so gives also additional livelihood options for them, and also the skills to actually maintain the structures. And yeah, after the second year, after the second flood, we can actually start using the area, which is then already rehabilitated, because it fills up quite fast. Because if we manage to use the sediment, which is transported through the floods, yeah, and we give time that it can settle down and infiltrate, we can start using it. And then we can have islands of productivity. And here is a nice example where you can see down here these black blocks are the water spreading weirs, which are actually in the lower part of the dry valley. So the water runs down from here. So here's the upper part and here's the lower part. And you start here with some check dams, and the water here from the erosion, we have here in this example, Dry Valley, for example, dry stone measures and fruit trees, and here you have an area for rangeland, and here you can go into the productive use where you actually have agricultural usage. But this is only an example. Of course, it looks different in every dry valley that you find. Here, an example of the different zones, how you can use. So I'm talking now about this lower part here. Down there, the agricultural part. This is kind of a zoomed in version where you can have different usages within this agricultural part, because of course the water in front of the water spreading weir has moisture for the longer time. Yeah, so outside you have more drought resilient crops like sorghum, for example, and yeah, you have stabilization of the structures, but let's not go too much into detail now. What are the benefits that we found? I think there are much more. It was based on a brainstorming session, so I'm sure if you are smart people, you will find much more benefits. So we were thinking about short-term direct effects are, of course, that you have new and fertile soil. Yeah, this is really direct and touchable. You need little input for this agriculture, and since you have the moisture which is receding, so we can also call it flood recession agriculture, because you don't need external irrigation, you just use the water which stays there. Yeah, because it's spread through these water spreading weirs, the water stays there, and then as the water recedes, you use it. Yeah, so you can have multiple harvests if you start outside and then cropping inside. Yeah, so we even discussed, I mean, you could even start thinking about rice cultivation in the very early part, yeah, of the after the flooding, and then in the end, after, when we go into the dry season, then you could crop it with something which is more drought resilient, like, yeah, maize and sorghum. Yeah, that leads into more crop diversification, and that we can start thinking about more about cash crops like beetroot, garlic, and sesame, chat, also a very important crop, especially in the Somali region. And yeah, of course, I mean, if you spread the flood and the flood doesn't come down within the gully, I mean, as Gerben said, we were in this very big Schalka-Ligure gully in July. If you are in there and you just imagine that the flood would come there, I mean, this is really amazing, yeah, and really frightening to be there and see how much damage the water can do. In the long term, of course, since the water has more time to infiltrate, the groundwater recharges, which gives us for the times where we have more droughts, possibilities for shallow wells that can be used for irrigations to bridge years where there's less or no rain. Of course, it comes to the benefit of the people in terms of economic terms and health terms. Of course, if they can farm more diverse crops, then of course the diet may improve. And people and their livestock may be less damaged. People start talking to each other and cooperate more if they start organizing themselves in cooperatives. And in the long term, yeah, we have more water, groundwater available. The systems become more resilient in general. Since we have more vegetation, of course, more carbon can be bound in there, because we need no external fertilization. We have less salinity and acidification because the fertile soil comes for free every year. And yeah, the whole, yeah, we said it may come to economic hubs, because if you start with agriculture and it's starting to grow, that you can have more than a little bit of maize and a little bit of grass for your livestock, then you need inputs, you need seeds, you need tractors. The tractors need maintenance, they need a fuel, yeah, you need a fuel station. You need then something, I don't know, accommodation, yeah, you need the whole infrastructure, restaurants. And then we can talk about economic hubs that can develop around this. And it's really amazing that if you just make water available, that these areas can start flourishing again. And then people don't need to migrate, because then, I mean, nobody does it for fun, right? So if you give people a purpose, and then the economy can develop there locally. I also have some examples for you. This is two pictures with only 2 years apart, with one new water spreading weir on the left, and one after the flooding season. And you can clearly see the increased vegetation. This is what we call the rehabilitated land. And the area will remain much longer green than the area outside. So this is what we can observe with satellite pictures. Here's another before-after picture for you, and you can see the difference quite clearly. This may look like a nice picture, but it's indicative of a problem that the lowland is facing. Yeah, I mean, if a pastoralist needs to climb up a tree and chop it down for his animal to feed, it's the end of everything. Yeah, then the last resources are cut down, and yeah, I mean, I don't need to explain to you that deforestation is contributing to erosion and soil loss. And this may look romantic, but it's actually a disaster. And we would like to empower the pastoralists to be able to produce their own fodder and not having to rely on rainfall, and get away from all the dependency that people have at the moment. Yeah, Gerben showed the picture of the food aid. We want people to be to give them an opportunity that they can keep up the life, yeah, they want to have, and that they had for 4,000 years. So where is the potential for DVRPU approach in Ethiopia? Here you can see it's a rainfall map. The purple is where most of the rainfall is, and here you can see in the lowlands there's very little rainfall. That means the rainfall that we have flows down into the lowlands. And this is a food insecurity map with the conflict in the north with Tigray inside, also marked in red. But you can see that it coincides that those areas where there's the least rainfall are the most food insecure areas. So where's the potential? This is now a Horn of Africa map, but you can see here, because for our approach, we need the slope, we need the difference in altitude to actually use the floods. So all these areas here in orange are the areas where we find the potential for DVRPU in the Horn of Africa, and it's actually massive. Should I continue, or you want to do numbers? Because we said it's nice to show pictures, and we can do that really emotional, but talking to you, it may be nice to show you some economics. At the moment, I mean, construction costs have risen, and we have a lot of inflation. So at the moment, to construct 10 water spreading weirs, because as Gerben explained, if we have multiple water spreading weirs behind each other, they back each other, and then you can use the overflow water later on. So this is at the moment a bit more than 500,000, 550,000 euros. And we calculated maintenance costs of 500 euros per weir per year. And here you can see that something is wrong with the presentation. That after in the 4th year, it is all the money invested is already yeah. I mean, you have exactly, yeah. So then you have the benefit after the return on investment starts being there after in the 4th year, and then you really start making benefit every year because you have only minimal maintenance costs. Okay, this on the economic terms, and now talking about food security, based on WFP figures. A person needs 146 kilograms of maize per year. And so that means that we can, the calculation is on the slide before, we need to look into that, with the yields that we found in AFA, we can feed 6,000 people per dry valley with this calculation. So it's 5,900, but it doesn't sound nice, so we said 6,000. People can be made food secure in one dry valley. Okay, well, what is 6,000 people, right? But we said, okay, at the moment in Ethiopia, we have about 20 million people that are food insecure. But we have a fund flow into the lowlands of 275 million euros per year, per year. And so if we would take for 10 years, just a little bit out of that, and we could rehabilitate within 10 years 1,000 dry valleys for 550 million euros. And so if we would just use 20% of this 275 million that flow into the lowlands every year for 10 years, then we could make 6 million people and 220,000 hectares can be brought into production. And this is different figures, right? And Gerben can do that much more enthusiastic and but this is a big number, yeah. I mean, remember, we have 20 million people food insecure in Ethiopia, and if we now talk about, okay, we can make with 20% of the money which is there anyways, and which is used, and I mean, there is no development. Where does the money go? Yeah, what's happening? Yeah, if we would use this money, we can bring back 22,000 hectares, 1,000 hectares of land and make 6 million people food secure. And this is really big numbers. And this is where we now get political attention, because of course this can make an impact. So what are the next steps? So first for us, it's capacity development, to train experts from the government, from NGOs, other stakeholders, as well as the universities, and spread the knowledge of DVRPU. Then the institutionalization. The Ministry of Agriculture is our main partner with which we develop this approach together. We have already massive upscaling in the Somali region. The government is convinced that this is the way to go. And we need to have more exchange between the stakeholders, because it is in a holistic approach. We need to combine the different threats and talk to each other, and then have other donors contributing and really work together towards the development of the lowlands and for the good of the people in the lowlands. And then we can start upscaling, and it not only stops, as we saw in the map in Ethiopia. There's a massive potential also in other food insecure areas. Yemen, massive problem of food insecurity. And we hope that we can now talk more about DVRPU, about the potential and how you can come on board. But let me finish first, because we would like to come back into the times of plenty, back into self-sufficiency and into a world where you can grow bananas in the lowlands. And thank you very much for being interested in that for now. And we would like to invite you to start thinking how your competence could contribute, understanding the approach and all the different levels of the approach a bit better, with the various perspectives that you could bring on board, because we have set aside a research fund that could be used, and where we would be very happy to receive proposals from you, from your colleagues. We are really happy to share our material for more in-depth knowledge and details. We have developed a guideline, which is now 70 pages, I think. The concept, the DVRPU concept. We have one copy with us that you can look at. We were really happy to share a digital copy with you, and we have brochures with us, which is the 4-page short version. And if you're interested, please get in touch. We would be happy to receive proposals until the 1st of December, so that we have time to review the proposals and then to implement next year, because our project, as Gerben mentioned, runs until June 25. For now, we may get an extension, but this is what we can calculate for now. And where we would be very happy to have more flesh by the bones, to underline the whole approach, which seems to have even more potential than we thought in the beginning. I mean, it's growing now. It's really, we have a lot of attention, and would be very happy if you would like to contribute. So many thanks for your attention, and really welcome for any questions or comments that you may have.
Maybe to add, just to for the 275 million that flows into the lowlands, this is development money, right? And we estimate 275 million, but it is probably a lot more. This is all the donor funds that come from Germany, from the World Bank, the African Development Bank, from the Americans, the Scandinavians, and the Canadians, everybody. This is a lot of money. And if you see what is actually being changed in the lowland with that money, it's not enough. There's a lot of it goes into humanitarian aid, and humanitarian aid is really important. But the most important thing is sustainable aid, so that people have a changed livelihood. And I think this is one of the areas where we can do that. And also, if people, and you would be interested in climate change, and you look at the current situation in the grain belt in the Northern Hemisphere, you will see that in America and Canada, we have problems with droughts and floods in the cereal belt. We have the same thing in Europe, especially in France this year. We have the war in Russia and Ukraine causing problems with cereal supplies over there. They have already destroyed the food for 1 million people. And if you look in China, they have the same problem. So for the first time, it could be that due to climate change, we actually would have a global crop failure. Now, if we have a global crop failure, and it looks likely, yeah, because if you look also in India, India has stopped rice exports because they had too much floods, and with that, all Southeast Asian countries have stopped rice exports. If global crop failure will be there, it's not us here in Germany that will grow hungry. We're fine. We're going to be fine. And so will the Americans. The hotspot for food insecurity in the world currently is the Horn of Africa. It is Somalia, it's northern Kenya, large parts of Ethiopia, Yemen, Eritrea, and Somaliland. We have not changed their systems. We have not changed it in a sustainable way. We actually have made them addicted to food aid. And if it goes wrong, there's 250 million people living in the Horn of Africa. And I think with this, if we can direct money and technical expertise in the right directions, and both are there, then we can make a sustainable difference.